I would like to ask on stage Jurgen Appelo and have him introduce himself.
All right, thank you. So, thank you for the opportunity to do whatever I want. I am wearing right now my lovely original yak wool sweater that I bought personally in Mongolia. So that gave me the idea of doing an original yak dance together with Joe, with me as a rider and with Joe as a yak. But unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to practice this afternoon. So I'll come up with something else. Last time what we did was I used you guys and girls as my guinea pigs for a new presentation, and that was awesome. Thank you very much. And I came up with something else. This time I wanted to do what is called a naked talk, only with all my clothes on. That means without slides. And what I came up with is, as you may know, I am the writer of Management 3.0, a book that has been selling quite well in Europe, a little bit in the US as well and elsewhere. And I've been doing courses all over the world, about 80 of them based on the book. And what I do in those courses is I ask people the question, what are your biggest problems now that you're trying to be agile? Write them on a sticky note, put them on the wall. Then we do an exercise, have them prioritize the problems and in a time-boxed way, etc. And so, a nice introduction to Agile. And what I've been doing all that time, all those 3 years, is I have been collecting all those sticky notes. So I have a big box with 2,000 sticky notes full of people's problems all over the world. Amazing. It's worth a lot of money, I think. So what I did a couple of months ago, I counted, at least I did a cross-section of those sticky notes, and I found the questions most asked, or the problems most reported by people all over the world. What I want to do is discuss the 10 most asked questions. We'll have them here on the list. And I want you to guess which ones they are. And then we will discuss them each for about 4 minutes. Let's have a time box there. See if we can answer them in 4 minutes. And for each question that you guess correctly, I will have a little book. I have 10 books, so I could give away 10 free copies of the book. So this is an experiment. I love experiments. I have no idea whether it's going to work. It might suck the next 40 minutes. Could be. But then I know I'm just the warm-up act. The real act is over there, right? So we'll just hand it over to Joe to make everything right again. Don't look at my notes. These are my notes. I'm going to ask you, does anyone have an idea? What is one of the 10 most asked questions? All right, I'll put your name here. Stefan. Yeah. No, we are Agile. What about the rest of the company? All right, good. Okay, congrats. Oh. Yes. It is actually number 3. Make rest agile. Oh. I'll abbreviate it. Right? We are agile, but what about the rest of the company? So, answers.
For the question?
Yeah. We have 4 minutes.
I had another question.
Yeah, no. We start the time box now. How do we make the rest of the organization more agile? Software development is doing well and doing Scrum, etc. But oh my God, human resources. Oh my God, marketing, etc. Outsource it.
Beyond budget.
That's not going to work.
You have to transform, you have to educate, you have to bring them all to the same level.
Yeah. Okay.
Not
Good.
revolution, but evolution.
Show some successes of agile working.
Show some successes of where it's working. All right. Yeah, makes sense. Any others?
Invite them into your agile teams.
Invite them into the team. See what we're doing.
Yeah.
All makes sense to me.
Look on cultural aspects, how they work, and
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
look on cultural aspects.
Local cultural aspects?
Look on cultural.
Oh, look. Okay. In what way do you mean?
How they work as a team, to see if you can bring some agile culture inside, and how to do it.
All right.
Start measuring the right things. Stop with inputs, start with outputs, those kind of things.
Okay. And what are the right things for the rest of the business?
It depends on which part of the business, of course.
Right. All right. So, yeah, Eddie?
Dissolve the team and
let them coach other teams. So quit the team and all the team members go to other teams.
Oh, okay. So you mean the current team is abandoned and you spread those people to other teams, but we can hardly have them do human resources and marketing and all that stuff. Right?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah, I understand that the other software teams, that would make sense. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Convince the rest that how they work now isn't as productive as they think.
Yeah, how do you do that? I have 2 minutes left.
Show them.
These are all difficult questions. I'm not finding, and they're not any simple answers to it.
Get marketing to do it first and then after that let them...
Get marketing to do it. Alright, that's going to solve all our problems. Well, I agree, many problems start with marketing. So maybe the solution should start there as well. Okay, so here's what I have been telling as one of the stories. I've been CIO for 7 years at a company in Rotterdam called ISM. They're still pretty big, by the way, growing even. What helped me was speaking the CEO's language. I had to gain trust with top management, and you can only gain trust if you're able to speak the other person's language. And for some reason, I know the difference between debit and credit. Yes, I can read a balance sheet because I've always been interested in money. And marketing, I find that fascinating as well. So I could talk business talk. And I was able to understand what the problems were of management, top management. Now there are many things that software development needed, like they needed a sustainable pace, not to be called back to the office for things that didn't work anymore in the evenings or have to work on Saturdays and stuff like that. Those were their needs. But that's not going to convince top management. The CEO needed other things. The CEO wanted customers not to call him anymore for websites that we delivered, and then we were off to our homes at 5 o'clock, but in the evenings they were trying to upload new inventory and nothing worked or whatever, and then they called him, of course, not us, the developers. So that was his pain. So what I learned in those years is I could do anything I wanted as long as I understood what was the pain for human resources, the pain for top management, etc. And then speak their language. I was able to convince HR that they should get rid of the hierarchy of developers, then becoming project managers, and then becoming business consultants, etc. That made no sense. But only after understanding what was important for human resources. All right, so good one. What's the next one?
Where do we start?
Where do we start? No, it's not on the list.
Not on the list.
How do you mean, where do we start?
Well, how do we get started? So we see this looks great, but we have all these pros and all these people. We're doing fine.
All right.
We think.
All right.
And
Interesting question, but it's not on the list, so we're not going to discuss it. Sorry. Other time. Yeah.
So how does this work in my organization?
No. No.
How to scale Agile?
How to scale? Yes, sir. All right. Can you pass it to the back? Scaling. It is number 10. But still, you just made it. So the question is usually, okay, we have it working for one team, but we have multiple projects. We have bigger products across multiple teams. We have multiple project managers or product owners or whatever. How do we do that?
well, we can use technology that's one.
We can, yeah. There's a tool for everything.
Split the team, split them up. It's the same answer.
Yeah, same answer. Good one.
Yeah.
Safe.
Yeah. Sorry?
Safe.
Safe. Oh, the scaled agile framework. Alright. Okay, no wars, but I'm sure they have some good ideas. To be honest, I haven't looked into it at all yet. And people keep asking me, how does Management 3.0 compare with Safe? I have absolutely no clue. I didn't look into it. I'm sure they have some good stuff, and I'm sure they are doing some things wrong, like everyone.
The Agile Meetup March 18th will be about this topic.
Alright, good. So we'll all be coming back then. So how do we scale to bigger teams? Anyone has suggestions or experience?
Just keep going.
Just keep going.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Or don't do it.
Yeah, just keep going. And in time, it scales.
Okay.
No, it doesn't scale.
Yeah.
It does.
Don't scale it. But how do you make a huge product then? You don't. You just only
Over
make small
time,
products.
it's like eating an elephant.
Yeah. The elephant carpaccio.
Yeah.
Right. How do you eat an elephant? One slice at a time. Okay. Any other suggestions? Oh, I forgot my time box timer. Sorry. What?
Often I see scrums being introduced.
Yeah. This is often suggested, but I have so far heard everyone say that it doesn't work.
Still,
Interestingly enough.
it's the first thing that they do.
Yeah.
Experiment. Experiment with principles, with new principles to guide the growing of teams in working together. So don't take one solution, but try something, agree on, trying, find out what happens.
Yeah.
Make a network, not hierarchy.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing that I would be trying to look for. I haven't heard anyone say holacracy yet. Is anyone familiar with that? They have some, you are obviously.
Aware of.
Well, people like us should be at least familiar with it, right? We've heard the term. Yeah, I've heard it, I have to say it. One thing that they have a very, very complicated constitution that I really don't understand. But one idea that they have that sounds interesting at least is all the teams have sort of ambassadors to other teams with which they have a dependency. And that just means that these ambassadors, so to speak, takes part in the meetings that the other team has, stand-ups or planning meetings or whatever. For me that makes sense because with the Scrum of Scrums method, you send people somewhere out of their team to have a discussion with each other and then they come back. But that's not the same thing as sending a person to where the other team is working and then see with your own eyes, as they say with the Toyota method, go and see, do it again, but go where the work is actually happening. You send a representative of one team to another team to see with their own eyes what they're doing and participate in their meeting. Of course, it is an extra bit of overhead that you have, but you should be able to respond much faster to things that you may not agree with, or you want to say, oh, but we've been working on that last week, and we can help you, or something like that. It's faster feedback happening. Makes sense. Makes sense. That's one suggestion I have picked up. I have no experience with it myself because I was basically at the other end of the spectrum at my company. We had many small projects. We did like with websites. We built them with 2 people in 1 month or something like that. So how do you have a Scrum team of 5 to 9 people then?
So, a bit the clue then.
Sorry?
Everything's small. Everything big. For example,
Yeah.
you have a lot of products that are based on Amazon, for example. And you don't influence Amazon in what they deliver, but they deliver components that you can use.
Yes, yeah.
You can do that internally.
Right, and I'm quite sure that you should be able to solve this problem if you turn your huge product into an ecosystem of smaller things that are all interdependent with each other, and then they all have their own cycle, perhaps, or they could synchronize where necessary across multiple teams, and then send ambassadors to each other's teams. Of course, you would need some people to have a sort of overall view on everything. But I don't have the experience. We had different problems. We had 3 or 4 projects happening on the same team of 7 people because the projects were so small. So we had another kind of complexity. How you have one team dealing with multiple product owners who have different priorities for their project. All right, next one. Contracts. No, it's not on this.
How do I get my customers to go with me?
Nope, it's not on this. Good one.
Perceived as more expensive?
Nope, it's not on this.
How can we improve further?
How can we improve further?
As a team.
Yeah, I counted. Develop skills, that's number 7. Develop skills. We have people who basically have no fucking clue what they're doing. How do we help them be better at implementing Agile? How do we develop competence of the people on our teams? Sorry?
That means making sure you hire the right people.
Hire the right ones. All right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. What if we do not have the right ones? Get rid of them.
Yeah, quit the team and don't spread them out.
Very good. And lock that team in a room and throw away the key. Okay. Serious one.
Train, coach, pair program.
Pair programming, yes, that's often mentioned as a very effective practice, but very rarely actually practiced. Yeah. Okay, others? Other good practices?
Take the keyboards away from the people that are really good.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Not allowed to program yourself, only
Yeah,
teach
go,
others.
go tell somebody else how you would approach this.
Right,
You
yeah.
can't have an IDE on your machine.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
You can't keep that one on for too long because then the really good one goes away.
All right, good.
Offer help where help is needed.
Offer help, yeah. Okay.
Communities of practice.
Community practice, yes. Yeah.
Plan for it.
Sorry?
Plan for the improvements. Make sure that there's room in what you're doing to actually do these kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, who was the one I already forgot? Who came up with it? This was you? Okay, thanks. Good. Yeah, they're all good suggestions. I would try to focus somehow on creating a culture of learning. I mean, we can all try to emphasize you should explain things to others every now and then, but if it's not there in the culture, like for example, my story that I always share is we gave people days available for self-education. Like vacation days, people had 25 vacation days or whatever, we gave them to start with 12 education days per year. They could use them in any way they wanted. Go to a conference, read a book, experiment with the technology, whatever. You just reserved the day, you could do whatever you wanted with it. It was totally free format. And after a while, when I checked the numbers, it turned out that nobody was using their education days. And I asked, why are you not using your education days? And then I heard things like, oh, we're so busy. So many problems and deadlines and projects and stuff. And I said, well, that's interesting because apparently you are able to use all your vacation days. No problem whatsoever, according to HR. They're all being used. It's just not the education days.
Did you get that?
Sorry?
Did you do that yourself?
Oh yeah, I always do that myself. But apparently I wasn't able to teach others that this is fun. So I failed there, and afterwards I learned of the practice, the FedEx days, that maybe some of you have heard of, that they are now renamed to Ship It days because FedEx started complaining about the name FedEx days. Probably people started calling FedEx, yeah, how do you organize a FedEx day? What? Ship It. So Atlassian, the tool vendor who came up with the idea, renamed it to Ship It days. I think that's a missed opportunity because then the focus is on shipping things, which is not the point. The point should be learning, innovation, exploring. So I prefer
What
to
is a
call it.
shipping day? I missed the...
Oh, sorry. I should have introduced. It is reserving a day every 3 months where everyone at the same time spends those 24 hours learning, doing something and trying to deliver something within 24 hours. That's why they call it a FedEx day, because you show the results in 24 hours to your team members and the rest of the company. And it works. And I think it works because everyone's doing it at the same time. So there's no excuses anymore of, oh, I'm so busy. You just broadcast to everyone that you are a completely incompetent person in planning your own calendar. If you knew that 2 months ahead, that there was one day reserved for learning, I mean, anyone could do that. So, and it turns out this is a very successful practice, I think, particularly for companies that are not used to learning. And then maybe after a while, when this culture is instilled of learning is fun, then maybe you can ease the constraints and say, well, why don't you use those education days, or whatever you want to call them, any day you want. And then they become like hackathons, or hack days as they call them at Facebook, Spotify, everywhere else. They work. They're the same as my education day, only we didn't have the culture, apparently. And they had. But how do you instill that culture? I think that's the main issue. All right, next one. We still have 7 to go.
Our client doesn't know what he wants.
Client doesn't know what he wants. Oh, bad for you. It's not on the list. Sorry. Sorry.
How to go faster? How to speed up?
No, it's not on the list.
Prioritizing the product backlog.
Prioritize the product backlogs. Not really, no.
Agile on a distributed team.
Agile on distributed, I would have expected that, yes, but it didn't make it into the top 10. Yeah, but it is asked quite often. Yeah.
Management doesn't work with it.
Management is not agile. Yes, yes, but isn't it the same as make the rest agile?
How do you reward people with salary bonuses based on what?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's asked often, but not in the top 10. Sorry.
What comes after this management 3.0?
No.
How do I explain my budget?
Sorry?
How do I explain my budget? What am I going to deliver in the end?
How do you explain your budget?
If you're saying if the rest of the company is not agile, how you're explaining that in the end of the year what your developers did. The whole business is okay. I'm giving this amount of money and I have no idea what your guys are going to deliver at the end of the year. The rest of the company is not there.
Okay.
That's our first question.
Okay.
Long-term planning question.
Right, yeah. Okay. Well, it's not entirely the same as number 9, but I want to make some progress here. So. I'm flexible. Okay, actually the question on number 9 is about estimations and commitment. Estimation. It is, you're very close. You're very close. Commitment. So we want to be agile, but still the business or the customers are asking what exactly are you going to deliver and when, and can you promise us a date? How do you deal with that? Those two seemingly contradictory things. The customer just wants fixed budget, fixed price, etc. Sorry?
How much is this estimate worth?
How much is this estimate worth for you? Okay. Is that the question you answer? The answer. Okay. Can you explain that?
Well, if I want to estimate with any position, then it's going to be really expensive.
Right. Okay. Okay.
The question: how certain are you that in a year this is exactly what you want?
Okay. Yeah.
Work with function points, and you agree what the function points are. Very hard.
Yeah.
It works.
Academic, I hear Joe say.
Start small.
Start small.
Start small and then deliver and get some confidence at the business that you can deliver and then continue with it.
Yeah, that's what I would prefer, but still, before you start small, they want to hear a number. Otherwise, they don't allow you to start small. So it's a chicken and egg.
Which decisions do you want to make on the basis of this?
I usually just give a range. So I just give them an estimate. It's a wide band built on estimate.
Right.
Explain that you prefer vague estimates to clear-cut lies.
Yeah.
I think it's no problem to give an estimation, but it's not scope. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I really like to give an estimation.
Yeah. I estimate that my book will be ready by the end of May. I'm pretty sure my book will be ready by the end of May. I have absolutely no clue what will be in it. Well, at least chapters that I've finished so far will be in it. But I won't go too detailed with any promises. I just promise there will be a book.
Yeah, but then you get to commitment, right? So now you know how many hours you're going to spend and when you're going to deliver something, but you don't know what you're going to deliver. So.
Well, I have a vague idea. So of course you have to end up somewhere in the middle. But what we did in the past was, and that was apparently sufficient for 90% of our customers, we just had a vague 1 or 2 pager with high-level user stories. Like there will be something of integration between this system and yours. No details of what fields exactly, whatever. And that was sufficient. And for us it was version 1 of the epics on our backlog, and then we could get started because that that gave reasonable size of the budget. The customer just wants to know, is it 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000? They don't care if it's 12,000 or 12,500. That's usually not the issue. So I think that is basically also what you mean, right? What's the value of the precision of the estimate?
Yeah. I can tell you we will be working with more than 10 people in this for the next 2 months. So
Right.
I know
Yeah.
you're not going to spend more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it very much depends on the project. I had some people who were, some project where it was extremely important that the date was hit because of new laws. I mean, the liberalization of the energy market in 2002. We had projects that had to be finished on July the 1st. There was no negotiation around it. So yes, we had an estimate. It would be finished by July the 1st. That was our estimate. And it was. 4 hours before the deadline.
Sometimes it isn't. Because the toeslagensysteem is not finished.
Yeah. So maybe we need a bit more agility there.
You need to tell the Tweede Kamer at a certain point that they are not going to get it.
Yeah. Well, not
they are not going to get it.
Not if they give you this 2,000-page requirements study and tell you that this.
But they give it to Scrum teams. The 2,000 pages.
Yeah, they do that.
To Scrum teams.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be better now.
Yes. It's a backlog of 1 page.
I'm glad I have no experience with that.
I know because we were there recently, but then they were exactly complaining about the 2,000 very fixed pages, and they were saying, "Look, you're telling us about Scrum, but we still have the 2,000 fixed pages. So what are we going to do?"
Okay. Yeah, well, it's great. First version of the backlog. All right, we need to proceed. Other questions?
How to sell technical practices to customer?
Nope. No.
Why should I go Agile?
Why should I go Agile? Interesting question, but no, it's not.
To get better quality.
Better quality? Nope.
How to create the required documentation?
Nope.
How do you reward teams?
Reward team? No, I had expected you to come up with all these common questions, but apparently it's very difficult. We'll try a few more, otherwise I'm going to give them one.
How do you keep your architecture intact?
Yep.
What's the role of management?
What is the role of management? What's the role of management? Okay, I'm going to give you that one. As part of the role of management is trust and support. And the question that I get more precisely is how do we get management to trust the teams? How do we get them to support them? They don't let themselves organize. They say yes to Scrum and then they're still controlling and everything. So what do we do? I think I heard some answers earlier in that direction.
Yeah, earn it.
Earn it. Yes.
Deliver.
Exactly. Yes.
Plan
Create.
delivery when you are on holiday as a manager for a week.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
So deliver on commitment. Because I read this fantastic book, Decision of Trust, with all the ways trust is developed between them. Have you read it as well? I heard. Yeah, great book. You agree it's a great book? Yeah. Okay, good. And one of the things he says is, out of all things you can do, the key thing is you generate trust by delivering on commitments. And basically, David Anderson of Kanban says the same thing. He said, if you just decrease your cycle and make sure you deliver your small promises, you have many chances of actually delivering what you had promised. It will be very hard to do that if you have one big promise and you're going to fail, because the chance is even bigger that you fail with one big promise. So have many small promises and then you generate trust. And one thing that I liked about Michael Sahoda's book, he's an Agile coach in Canada, he says you pay a tax. You want to be agile like this, nice and round, but the environment is asking you to be square. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. Well, you'll just have to be square for a time. For a while. And this is tax that you're paying. So yes, you'll have to do all that stupid stuff. You will have to maybe have to create Gantt charts or have somebody translate the burn downs to Gantt or whatever, and do other stuff that you think doesn't make any sense. It probably doesn't make any sense, but the environment expects it. And then when you create a trust, when you're able to do things as the others expect you to do it, then you are in a position that you can negotiate. And I say, can we make this a little bit more round, this area, and then after a while you should be able to get rid of that tax. But you're never able to say no to that tax that you're asked to pay if you haven't created a trust first, and then start delivering on commitments. I agree.
It's difficult when your problem is complex and you have to have some issues once in a while which require making them small.
Yeah, well, I never said management was easy. Fortunately, it's easy, otherwise I wouldn't have been doing 80 courses all over the world. But yeah, good point.
So what do you call the book?
Sorry? The decision to trust by Robert F. Hurley. Ask me over email if you can find it. All right, next one.
How do you deal with technical debt accrued before you introduce Scrum?
No, it's not on this. Go on.
How to give each other feedback.
I'll give you that one. All right, can you pass this on? It's number 5. Teamwork and collaboration, and I would see feedback as part of that. Being able to collaborate involves giving each other feedback on things we did well and things we didn't. So the question is how do we get them to collaborate? They don't. I now tell them, okay, you are a self-organizing team, and I sit there with my hands crossed and nothing happens. So, give the right example. By collaborating with the team?
Yeah, by using your non-violent communications and dealing with the team, show them that you can do that. It's happening.
Yeah, okay.
Ask them the right questions.
Ask the right questions?
Make them aware of what they do and what are the consequences.
Ensure that your feedback is not always fulfilling.
Okay, yeah.
Understand that it's hard.
So feedback on failure and successes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If feedback is only on failure,
Yeah. Yeah, some say don't focus only on the negative things, also on the positive things.
start with positive.
Yeah.
Understand that it's really hard. So it's easy to talk about it, but it's hard to do. So I thought that in the presentation of Possible, they hit a quote like an agile team is like a dysfunctional family. I think a lot of times it is. So you need to you need to accept it.
Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps by example, I think if management would act more as a functional rather than a dysfunctional team, that would probably have a very positive.
That's a good
As
one.
a manager, I think it's in a team.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. So lead by example there. Show that top management is able to have a team functional.
Be able to take feedback as well if you're talking about feedback.
Yeah. Okay. There's one thing I haven't heard yet. But
Make team accountable for end-to-end process.
And with purpose. Yes, I heard purpose. Were you the one with purpose, or you said purpose? So I think a team is only a team when it has a purpose, an identity, and shared values. And it is surprising how often managers complain about teams not working as teams, and then when we ask them, what's their name? Oh, Team 3. Team 3? Who was inspired by the name Team 3? Not me. And what is their purpose? Well, basically to do whatever the customer wants. What? Oh, that sounds a bit boring. Just be the product owner's slave, basically, you mean. Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it like that, but yeah, they have to do what the customer wants. Well, no surprise that they're not a team. So, I think, and that's what I deal with in my class, there should be a purpose, something that unites everyone, there should be shared values, and there should be an identity, a name or whatever, something that keeps it all together. All right, 4 to go.
Metrics?
Metrics. Interesting, but no, it's not on the list. Let's see, a reminder for myself which is on the list. Yep.
How do you keep momentum and energy in all the cycles you do and deliver?
No.
How to deal with contracts?
Yeah, it is often asked, but it didn't end up in the top 10. A few more, and I'll give them.
How about operations?
Operations? Nope.
How to prioritize.
Nope. Culture, yes. Jackpot. Well, almost jackpot. Number 2. Culture. How do I change the organization's culture is the question. It's unbelievable how often this is. I find this on sticky notes. We have such a boring organization here. People are glad to leave the office at the end of the day. So, how do we make the organization fun? Joe, how do we do that?
Cocaine.
Cocaine.
Wall Street. Also increases productivity.
For the short term, velocity spike.
All right, cocaine is one option. Others?
Well, Connor had an interesting view on it because he's got this whole change methodology book stack that he's written, and now recently he started over and he says, well, I've written a lot of stuff, and actually I see that it doesn't really work, so you have to just start over. You just build a new organization inside your organization. You start over with people that actually want to, and then the people that will move over, people that don't, won't, and then you end up in something new, but actually changing what there is something that he kind of gave up on. So.
Yeah. Okay, I think he has a good point. Basically, it's the adoption curve. The innovation adoption curve starts with the innovators and early adopters. So forget about the rest if you haven't dealt with that group first, and then you go along the curve with the early majority, late majority, and the laggards. You just have to kick out to shoot them dead. Something like that.
That was kind of what he did first. But what he's now saying is, all right, so take those innovators and don't let them try to change the old organization. Actually have them start a new organization.
Right, okay.
So it's quite an interesting concept.
Yeah, okay. I should look into that. Thanks. Anything else? Yeah.
What was she talking about?
What were we talking about? About Kotter, new work of John Kotter. Kotter is famous for...
look up his blog. He's got
This is who?
Kotter.
Kotter.
Oh, Kotter.
John Kotter, yes. That book.
That book, but he doesn't believe in that book anymore. So.
Throw it away.
Well, I'm glad I still believe in mine.
Yeah. That's only until your next one is ready.
All right. Okay, well, to keep it short, the solution is in that little book, How to Change the World. I mean, I borrow from Kotter, but everyone else, basically. And there's a huge amount of stuff that you need to do. It's amazing. But work on the environment, work on the individual people, they're all motivated for different reasons, work on the relationships between people, the social network, etc., etc. So that was number 2. We have 3 more to go. Anyone have an idea? We haven't hit the number 1 yet, surprisingly.
How long is a sprint?
No.
How to make money now?
No.
What am I going to do?
What am I going to do? No.
That's a no.
How do you pronounce your last name?
No. Okay, I'm going to give them away. It's we should make room for Joe in a while. Number 8. It is very similar to one of the others, but I found it a bit different. Non-agile environments. How to do our work. How to do our work in an environment that is hostile to agile, or where we have teams, software teams that are not agile, for example. We have an agile team, but the others over there are doing waterfall. How do we deal with that? And they don't want to do Scrum either. They have this big Gantt chart. How do we connect with that? So part of the organization, part of software development is agile, and the other part is not. Anyway.
Lead by example. Show them success.
You didn't want to change it this time.
But they didn't want to, I mean, that's, otherwise it would not be a problem. I'm sure the issue was raised already, but
Just
this is
stop
what
all
they're
the
doing.
software.
Just stop also.
Yeah, kill the product.
Accept failure.
Accept failure.
Go back to waterfall.
Talk their language.
Talk their language. I would say that's a good point, that's a good start. Basically same as what we had here with the top management and HR, how to convince them. The same with other teams. Let's just assume that neither of us is right, but this is what we're doing, that is what you're doing over there. How can we connect those two worlds? And probably you'll have to do extra stuff to make it easy for them, but they will have to do extra stuff to make it easy for you. There should be a solution in there somewhat.
It's the same as working with other agile teams. You just connect with each other, go to each other's meetings, but then you go to Scrum meetings with the agile non-agile teams, with your Scrum meetings, and otherwise you go to large planning meetings or discuss product plans or whatever.
Right. But you will have all kinds of discussions, like the other team, they will want an elaborate description of the technical interface or whatever, that you don't have because you're agile, you don't care, but they want it anyway because they need it. So,
Maybe.
Joe.
To exactly what you just said, I do see a lot of companies cope with this, where they have a quick moving agile team and then they have dependencies on slower teams, usually waterfall teams, by clarifying the interface first between those two. Because they say, we do have a dependency on you, let's be very precise what it is so we can have a mock, so we're less dependent on you. And then the sad reality that doesn't really make it easier, it seems that then they also need to have a plan B. Because 8% of waterfall projects deliver on time and on budget, right? 8. So there's a large percentage chance that that fast-moving agile team is not going to have what they need from the other team. So it doesn't make it easy, but what are they going to do? Are they going to keep deving against that stubbed interface they made? Do they have an outsource plan? Do they have enough user stories that they can start doing that other team's work? What is the plan B? Again, it doesn't solve it, but at least they've put that into their release plan. We likely are going to need to do something else. And if the interface is clearly defined, maybe they can spin up another team to rescue them from that dependency. It's something I see.
No? Good, thanks. Any others
Yeah.
to contribute to that?
What I found to be useful, actually useful, not to give help, it's not telling anybody that you're actually doing agile. But
Not using the A word.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But celebrate your successes, and then
Yeah.
eventually they'll see that you're a success, and then they want some part of your success as well.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So we're not doing A ... or S ... This is just what we're doing. This is our culture. Seems to work for us. And how can we connect us to you? I'll work it out. Yeah. Okay.
Make your work visible, Plaza.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just might have to find value that's not dependent on the other teams. It might be one of your plan B suggestions, to have something on your backlog that you can actually do, which will just bring value without doing that on the interface.
Yeah. I was, I had, before I wanted to do the last two, my own, I don't have experience with this, by the way, because I was a command and control CIO. I just told everyone that we were doing Scrum on all the teams at the same time. That worked. No problems with interfaces. I was in a company in Norway, and I spoke with a project manager there. That was quite interesting. It was Cisco Systems, where they had made hardware with software, and they had these similar issues. I mean, hardware is a different kind of production process. They can try to be as agile as they want, but at some point you have atoms that you're working with and not bits. So he said, in order to deal with that, they did things like new features. This was audiovisual equipment that they were making. They were built both in the software part, in software teams, and in the hardware teams. And they just let it emerge which ones was faster. And the others assumed that they would, each of those would assume that their feature would end up in the product, but they knew it might not, because the others might be faster. And he said this is keeping your options open, real options, it is scenario planning, and said you don't know what the result will be, but at least in the marketing brochure we will be able to say that we have this feature. We're just not going to tell anyone whether it's a hardware solution or a software solution that we have inside. Who cares? The customer doesn't. And then they were able to cut such dependency, because hardware was not dependent anymore on software for delivering that feature, because hardware contained it themselves. That was quite awesome. We also did things like translating. He said he had all these great, he had this big war room with burn downs, where he had this big stand-up with all the teams, and then when they were gone, he said, don't tell anyone, but I have my Gantt charts underneath. He had Gantt charts there with milestones. He said, yeah, I have to, because I talk with other people's stakeholders, and they need their milestones. I cannot show them burn downs. It makes sense to me and the teams, but not to my stakeholders. So that was quite fun. All right, I'm going to give away number 4. That is ownership and responsibility. Responsibility. So the problem here is we have a self-organizing team, and they collaborate and all that kind of stuff, but when push comes to shove, they say, oh, but this is not our job. And the ball drops in the middle and nobody really picks it up, because they expect ultimately management to solve all the problems. Because, hey, you get paid more than I do, so why should we solve those problems? So how can we get teams to take responsibility and have accountability for what they do? That is the question.
Well, it's obvious, pay management less.
Pay management less! Good one.
Fire all the management.
Allow teams to fail as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of the answer to all the questions, isn't it?
Well, is that a problem actually? Because the product owner has a responsibility to deliver something. He's basically the agile project leader. He's responsible for the success of the project. And he just says to the team, you're my bitch. You bring whatever I have to deliver.
Wow, and that's how some people feel that they're being treated as the bitch. Right.
Yeah, but why are they questioning what the product owner says is responsibility?
Well, I don't know, this is not a product owner issue, I think. This is management, team leaders and development managers wondering why teams don't take responsibility and accountability for the stuff that self-organizing teams should be doing.
Something you see in the perspective a lot is that they find a lot of things that are wrong, and then you ask them, so how are you going to solve them? And then there's, well, this is something that they have to solve, this is something that they have to solve, this is something that they have to solve, but it's all our problem because we can't go further without solving that. And it's kind of interesting to see that then just says, okay, so how are you going to solve that? Because they're actually not going to do that for you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
If you don't delegate a certain amount of authority, it's very difficult for people to take responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Delegation topic is important here. Eddie?
You can also make them proud and see what purpose they serve. Because what I found is that people are really seeing the feedback that actual users give on their product. That they really get this intrinsic motivation to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So then they'll take responsibility.
Right. Yeah. So pride in the results for taking responsibility and solving problems that they didn't realize they could solve themselves. Yeah. That's one thing. I have a story that I always share in this area is where I think with accountability come privileges, because you cannot just give a self-organizing team all kinds of freedoms without saying, and this is what you get in return if you do a good job. When I was I don't know 12 years old or something like that, I was allowed to come home anytime I wanted. But not my brother. He was a few years younger. He had to be home at 9. And he was mad at that. He didn't like the fact that he had to be home at 9 and I was allowed to come home anytime I wanted. And he also wanted to have that freedom. And then my mother said, all right, but first promise me that for at least a year I don't have to pick you up from the police station anymore. Right. And I was, you know that, I was always that sweet little boy. I had earned that privilege of being allowed to come home anytime I wanted, but not my brother. So he had to earn that freedom. Now, and of course, we're talking about adults here, adult people, but sometimes the maturity of a team is completely different from the maturity of individual human beings. They could be highly professional software developers, but as a team they could fail tremendously in the way they self-organize. So we're talking about the maturity of team dynamics here. And it could be that it is not mature, but there's something that they want. I'm sure they want to come home anytime they want in the evenings or something similar. It's unbelievable. The things that people want in our organization, of course, they wanted to work from home. They wanted to select their own computers. They want to have 2, 3, 4 computers on their desk. They wanted all kinds of stuff. And I said, okay, good. Well, just show me that you're a professional software developer. You haven't shown some of the basic things that I expect from a professional software engineer. You're asking me all these freedoms. It's a bit the same as my little brother back then. So I believe with accountability, responsibility, accountability come privileges. If you cannot show people what they get in return, then why should they? I agree, and then they will simply say, hey, you get paid more than I do. If I do a great job, what's in it for me? Well, all these freedoms that I'm sure you want, but we only give them to highly professional software teams.
But now you're going around that, I think it's a little bit tailor focused, because people are bad and you have to focus them. No, but it sounds a bit like, because you can also think responsibility is really hard to take in a large organization where everything is really fussy. So then it's really hard to understand what your responsibility is. So maybe you need to do something in your processes also to make it clear for everybody what the processes are. Because I think in a lot of ways we tend to learn people by making mistakes, and you can always do it more clear how they should work.
Yes.
And then it's faster.
Yes. But you don't, I sometimes use the metaphor of a horse, because the word management is actually derived from managare, which means taking care of horses. Very nice. Taking care of a living system. That's what management means. Not taking care of a machine, but a living thing. So, and a fully self-organizing team that would be like a wild horse. Now, I'm not going to sit on a wild horse and slap its ass and say, yeehaw, and then hope and pray that it runs in the right direction. I need my reins, I need the spurs, I need the bridle and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the horse pretty much decides for itself what it's doing, but within reasonable limits, there will be a fence somewhere. And anyone, I'm not a person familiar with racing or handling horses, but I'm quite sure that it starts with more limited freedoms that can be extended over time, when the horse shows that it's very well behaved and can do a great job. And I think it's the same with any other self-organizing system. But it is dangerous, Dave Snowden, the complexity researcher, says, it is dangerous to just let everything self-organize. It's the same as self-combustion, he says.
Jurgen, do you know horse breaking?
Sorry?
Do you know the term horse breaking?
No, what's that?
That's the way they tame the horses.
Okay.
And they do it by binding their legs and kill their will during a few days.
Oh,
and then sitting on them. Not a good example.
Okay. All metaphors fail at some point. But
it's really breaking the system down.
Thanks for the insight. Number one.
Is that what would Joe Justice say?
What would Joe Justice say? When is it my turn? No, that's not the question.
You should have them ask their team members. They should ask themselves the question, this product that I'm making, if someone that I care about or love, would I feel comfortable them using the product that I'm just made?
Okay, that sounds like a very complicated question. It's not the most asked question in the world.
Okay. I'll ask that question myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, sorry. We need to finish this.
No, it was the answer for 4.
Ah, okay. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, all right. Okay, so could you repeat it in 10 seconds? What you? Then I misunderstood.
Okay, if you want someone to take responsibility for the product that they're using, they have to ask themselves the question: is the product that I'm now making, is it good enough for someone that I care and love about to use that themselves?
Okay.
Or if they feel threatened about it in any way, then
Okay.
it's not a good enough product.
Thanks. Now, one question in the world. Which one is it?
Well, you were training managers, right? So hopefully they were asking, how can I create the right context?
How can I create the right context?
Create blocks, visual, and stakeholder things?
No. Anything else?
How to create high performance teams?
How to create high performance teams?
How to deal with stakeholders.
I want to hear one. I'll give you three more chances.
How do you create type of careers and self-progression in an agile environment?
It's all
How do you create a common vision?
a common vision.
When are we successful?
No.
How you create agile mindset?
It's a very simple question.
What is agile?
How do we motivate our employees? They hate their jobs.
Give them good work.
Wrong audience.
What's the answer? How do we motivate people?
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Change the culture, make the rest agile.
Encourage teamwork, second about trust,
Do
learning.
anything else. Yeah, that makes sense.
Get to jet frogs.
Jet frogs, yes. Yeah. Exactly. Well, at least that would be my suggestion. Yeah. Curiosity, honor, acceptance, mastery, all the intrinsic desires of people. I don't know if I shared the story with you before this audience, but I'll try anyway. So one person was very much against Scrum, one software developer. When we introduced it, he hated it. And when we asked why, he said, he was against the collective code ownership, which is actually extreme programming, but okay, it was introduced as part of Agile. And he didn't like that because he had been responsible for his own code, and he was the best software developer. He had the highest quality code on the team, and he didn't want the monkeys on his team to destroy his code, basically. I could only imagine his frustration that he had been creating these beautiful classes and interfaces in the morning, and then after lunch everything was destroyed by the baboons. I mean, I understand that. So what I did was I asked him, I said, you have a good point. There is a problem with the quality of the code, but not only on your teams, elsewhere as well, and we have to do something about that, and I need you for that. What if you lead the community of practice? Why don't you help others with good design patterns, code quality, reviews, or whatever you think is necessary? He loved the idea. He thought it was great. And I gave him a few hours per week. It was not much, and he did a good job, actually. And he was very, very enthusiastic about that. Why? Because in hindsight, I think what he needed was the confirmation that he was one of the best software developers. It was mastery and status that he was after. And if he didn't have the code to show, he needed something else, that he was one of the best software developers. So I gave him that status. Case closed, solved. He was in favor of Scrum from that point on. Because it was actually pretty cool. Once he got past that hurdle of being against the change, there was something bothering him. And this is my message for anyone who is dealing with motivation of people. They're all different people. The science says that you're not all the same, you have different motivators. For me, it is freedom. I love my freedom, it's number one, but other people don't care that much. They care about social relatedness, for example. What's more important? Find out what it is per person. There's something bothering them. Probably when you introduce a new idea, there's something that doesn't fit that well. And that's it's interesting because the Agile Manifesto says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. There's the word individuals there. And then what are we asking of them? All kinds of collective things and team stuff. And ignoring the individuals on the team. So we should not forget about the individuals. They're all different people, and yes, you can do something. You cannot really change a person's brain, but I don't agree with people who say you cannot motivate people. That's nonsense. I can motivate people. I can also make people laugh. I do that quite often. Right? I cannot make them laugh literally, but I know some things that work with a high probability. Same with motivation. All right. Thank you very much. Those were the top 10. I hope you found that interesting, and we're going to